The media is looking for a reason to figure out or to explain the fact that Obama's numbers are going down. And they say, well, it can't be because of the economy, so why is he not getting credit? And the answer always comes down to racism. See, that's the only thing that makes sense, right? It must be because Obama is black, and Americans are a bunch of racists, and they don't like him because he's black. Even though they elected him and re-elected him, they're still racists, right? But here's this discussion. This is from CNN. This is this guy, Mark Potok. He is the Southern Poverty Law Center, represents that center, talking about rampant racism in America. And he's using Ted Nugent as an example, as if Ted Nugent somehow reflects average Americans. But have a listen. Cut number 12.
Well, I think the best data shows that, in fact, anti-black racism has risen over the last 4 or 5 years. There's polling that shows that both implicit and explicit anti-black attitudes among American whites have gone up quite significantly between 2008 and 2012, to the point where now more than half of white Americans have these anti-black attitudes.
Half. More, actually, he said more than half. So more than half of white Americans are racists. We are? So you're telling me that all of these white racists voted for Obama even though they were racists? Why? I mean, nobody knows who you're voting for. I mean, I can understand if you're a racist and you're polled, right? And someone says, are you a racist? Most people would be embarrassed and they would say, no, I'm not a racist. So some racists, if they were polled in an opinion poll, might want to say, do you like President Obama? And they're going to say, yes, I like him, to kind of cover up their racism. So all these opinion polls where people are asked, do you think Obama's doing a good job? You would think the racists would lie because, they're talking to somebody, they're answering a poll. Maybe if it's all done on the internet. But a lot of these polls, someone's talking to you. I get called all the time by people doing polls. I generally just hang up because I don't have the time to sit there and do a poll. But some people probably stay on the phone and answer these questions. And, even if you're a racist, you don't want to come out and say you're a racist. I guess unless you're in a room full of people that you know are racist, and then maybe you could do it. But if somebody calls you on the phone, you might want to cover up your racism by saying you like President Obama. But in a voting booth, when you go into a voting booth, nobody knows who you're voting for, right? There's nobody there to see you. So that's where your real racism can come out. You don't have to cover it up, right? Because it's a secret ballot. So if you're a racist, then you're going to express your racism at the ballot much more than you would in a poll, where you might want to cover it up because you don't want to be embarrassed. So if we're really so racist, how come these racists, when they were alone in a voting booth, voted for the black guy instead of the white guy? Clearly, they're not racists. And look, I mean, you have black entertainers that are extremely popular, with white people. I mean, this is all nonsense. Yeah, are there some white racists? Of course there are. Are there some black racists? Yep, they're there. In fact, there may even be a higher percentage of black racists among the black population than there is white racists among the white population. Now, I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to say, but it's possible. But no one really cares about black racism. It's all about white racism. But here's the rest of this cut, or the second half of it, cut number 13.
Also seen an enormous growth over the last 15 years or so in the number of hate groups, primarily white supremacist groups, from about 600 in 2000 to more than 1,000 today. So there are a number of things out there that suggest this is going on, and frankly, I think a piece of it is the permission giving that people like Ted Nugent, in effect, give. When Ted Nugent describes the black president as a subhuman mongrel, he is using language that comes right out of the Nazi Party, right out of the Klan. So I think that has an effect. And when a major politician in Texas refuses to condemn this in any way, I think it in effect tells certain people out there it's all right to have these kinds of attitudes.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't even know how many people were familiar with the fact that Ted Nugent went on this rant in which he said a lot of things negative about the president. I don't know why he chose to use the word subhuman. Yeah, it's an insult, but I don't know that it's necessarily racial. Just saying that he's subhuman. I mean, obviously he's human, but he's there's a lot of negative things that you can call him. I'm sure he did call him, but 600 to more than 1,000 hate groups. Well, you would expect there to be a rise in this type of groups, given the deterioration in the economy. And when people see their lives worse, they tend to blame people, especially in this environment of scapegoating people and vilifying people in class warfare. It's no doubt that the groups would be up. That's about a 40% increase in 13 years. I wouldn't say that it's like rampant to have that kind of increase. And I wonder, what you have to do to fall into that category. I mean, how much hate and who do you have to hate, in order to be considered a hate group? But what's really interesting, I want to play some sound after the break, because the other word, mongrel, he called the president a mongrel. Now, I guess, does that mean he's a racist because he's like some kind of a mutt? But I want to play some sound of President Obama himself, using that word, and no one seemed to care when the president uses it. So somehow when Ted Nugent uses it, it's a bad thing. But the president can use the word. I want to throw in that clip that I referenced earlier, last segment, President Obama from 2010, using the word mongrel himself to describe African Americans. So maybe if Ted Nugent used it, well, so did the president. Here, have a listen to that. Cut number 9.
Part of what I realized was that if the world saw me as African American, then that wasn't something that I needed to run away from. That's something that I could go ahead and embrace. And the interesting thing about the African American experience in this country is that we are sort of a mongrel people. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all kind of mixed up.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so they're mongrel people. So it's not a phrase that the president himself was uncomfortable with, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's one of those things that it's okay for the mongrels to call themselves mongrels, but not for anybody else. But again, I'm not excusing what Ted Nugent said, because I wouldn't use those words myself. But I don't think it says anything about the racism in America. And I think the media, once again, is making a mountain out of a molehill, which they always do. And there's complete hypocrisy, because when the shoe's on the other foot, they ignore it completely.